What is going on with that? That was weird. I'm just like, now I see what's going on. I see what's happening. I've got multiple things open. Hang on.
Did you lose yourself, Christian? Are you having an identity crisis?
This is what I was talking about, Sharon. Windows is trying to be helpful. It did some other stuff. And where the heck are those other?
Did you lose it?
Mm-hmm.
It's all right. We'll get there. I think, we've made it through
there we go,
30 some on episodes without hardly any technical issues. I think that's some sort of a world record. So the fact that we're having a couple today, I think everybody's like, all it does, my husband says this all the time whenever I make a mistake. He's like, all it does is remind me that you're human. So guys, we're real. We're real. We're really doing this. We really have technical issues.
Live. I know.
Really
nobody does this. Nobody does this in a pre-recorded. No. Yeah. Well, hello, Sharon. Good morning.
Well, hello. Good morning. And welcome to the latest very live episode of the Project Failure Files. This is a series for anyone who manages projects or project teams for a living or does any of those types of roles. I'm Sharon Weaver, CEO of Smarter Consulting.
And I am the very human Christian Buckley, a founder of Collab Talk. And welcome to another episode of our series where Sharon and I explore project management, leadership development, management. It's not just about PMs, but largely we're talking about that stuff, but from the perspective of what not to do as you manage projects. And in each episode, we talk about some of the common pitfalls. We share our personal stories, sometimes painful personal stories and experiences. And then we explore strategies and best practices to help you to be successful.
Yeah. And, often we add a lot of humor to this, and, we wanted to go from this, what not to do, because otherwise it's really boring. So some of it's
unintentional humor,
the unintentional humor of other people's suffering.
Yeah.
So in this episode today, we are going to be talking about automation, which is always fun for me. How we track, measure, manage projects. And specifically, we're calling this the value of automation to enhance efficiency and accuracy. I feel like it's some acronym for some amazing.
There's something. That's the dream, though, right? That's to enhance efficiency and accuracy. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right? We strive for that. I think it's also an important part of this discussion is that balance between what you automate and what you maintain, the level of human oversight. This is a very popular topic right now in the AI discussion, for example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. I think it's very topical. I think it's very relevant. I think, all of this that has been around in the past is coming around again. From the dawn of time, we have heard how automated project management is going to eventually become and how automation is going to do everything for us. This is why I'm not scared of AI at all, because automation is nowhere close to that. So, AI is probably not.
Cloud is going to ruin our world and our jobs would be gone. And now it's AI.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, exactly. So the funny thing is, no single product has really come out that's really dominated all of this. So, it really just hasn't like it hasn't come to fruition. It hasn't met the expectations of any of those predictions.
Well, unless you're counting Microsoft Excel, because that has dominated the scene and remains the number one project management solution. People that go and build a spreadsheet, they do like kind of a rough work breakdown structure there to track, but that's the most common denominator for tools.
Yeah, I think the only competitor to that might be like Notepad or Stickies.
Or I'm seeing a lot of Smartsheet as well in the Google world. So
which is Excel, right? Like
Excel.
It's Excel like on steroids and ramped
Excel
up a little
light.
bit. All right. Well, let's get started with some definitions, talk about what we mean by automation.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can't help but go back to like the beginning of my career, which was my first kind of BA and then PM role was working for a consulting company in the early 90s. And they had a master spreadsheet.
Of course.
Again, it wasn't Excel. I'm trying to remember. I think Excel existed in 92, 93. I can't remember. Anyway, but they managed everything by this spreadsheet, and they were constantly having to back it up, because what would happen is it was essentially everybody was able to go into this live, massive tracking spreadsheet, and occasionally somebody would overwrite it or delete it, or or something would happen to it, or it would lock up, and you get all these messages out to hundreds of people, engineers and analysts and PMs and BAs saying, hey, there's something going on with it. So keep track of what you're working on and enter it in later once it's back online. So that was, my first experience of looking at a centralized tracking tool of time and projects and all those kinds of things. And it was awful. Well, even before that, when I was a runner for a law firm and working with the law firm and understanding how they did their billable hours in 15-minute increments and kept track of all of that, that was much more efficient and largely paper-based still, but much more efficient than what I saw with the early tools. What was your earliest recollection of automation?
Ooh, like I've been around a long time. I mean, before I got into technology, I worked in pharmacy where we still like typed labels on typewriters and printed them on printers, right? Like really old school. But honestly, like when I got into technology, I remember, so my husband was a developer and he ended up going into the testing space where he was writing test scripts, right? And this was very early on in continuous integration development when they started to build these tools that would allow you to create scripts against your code to be able to make things happen or test things or whatnot. And I would say, like, if I think about automation truthfully, like from a technical perspective, there's process management that you can kind of think about automating processes, but we think about technical automation. I think those early kind of like testing tools where they would capture like your clicks, like the click repeaters, were probably some of the earliest things that I had experience with. And I remember there was a day where I had to do I had a spreadsheet, honestly, I had a spreadsheet and it had like 1,500 sites that I had to go in, and all I had to do was check the little box that said that SharePoint Designer could use them, right? And I just remember, I don't want to click 1,500 sites. But I had to go through and do it all. And I was like, and then I had to go update the spreadsheet. So everybody knew that it was done because project management. And so what I ended up doing is my husband's like, well, why don't you try this tool that I've got that can memorize your clicks and see if you can just feed it your sites and then it can go through and click the button for you. And I was like, what? So I sure did memorize my clicks. I assigned it the thing, I set it to go, and I basically sat and babysitted all night to make sure it did it. And honestly, like that was my first introduction to something where I felt like there was a process that was really, truly automated, is that I fed it 1,500 sites. It went through and honored my clicks. I validated at the end. It updated the spreadsheet for me, and I was a happy person.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, thinking back speaking of Excel too, I just remembered another experience, but I was taking data, building charts in the old version of Excel before it was remember when it was the like proprietary scripting language, whatever that built it before they moved over to Visual Basic, the modern version of that. So I had worked with an engineer in my company, and we had automated a bunch of things to grab the charts, the images, to generate them, and then push them over into Word. One of my early workings with Word, having come from the desktop publishing world and the Aldus PageMaker world, which now anyway, but it would pull all of that data open. And so then all I was doing was going through and manually cleaning up the formatting of these reports in Word and then publishing those out, these Word docs. But in as monotonous as it was just doing the cleanup of that, so much less painful than pulling all of those things over. But the idea here of that automation, and both of these, or all three of these experiences, streamlining workflows, reducing that manual effort. And now I look back, I think back to that project, that second project, how painful it seems to me now, the level of manual effort that it took to go and do those things, where now we would say, like, look, put all that stuff into a dashboard and that's centrally located on the internet. Why would you go and do that publishing? It's like the internet didn't do the things that it does today. So all of these things, this is why, I mean, you and I talk all the time around, operations management. You're continually looking at improving that. When you think like, hey, we couldn't get any better than where we are, we're at peak operational efficiency, something happens. Business rules change, the technology changes, the demands from your leadership team change, all those things where you're constantly going back in and saying, okay, how do we make it a little bit better? How can we do better?
Yeah, exactly. And like with any process, we always want to trust but verify. And so even with automation, the whole idea of automation is that it's taking repetitive tasks or things that, you can hand off and delegate to a system to be able to do. But at the end of the day, you still want to make sure that you can verify it. Early on, I got to work at a company that did document scanning. And so basically what we did is we would scan thousands and thousands and thousands of documents in, and it would OCR it automatically. And then we would have a human that would basically validate to make sure that what was OCR'd was actually the information was there. And so there's always this piece of, you can automate a significant portion of it, but you're always going to have to trust but verify, meaning there's going to have to be some sort of quality assurance or human interaction to make sure that whatever it did the way you expected it to.
Well, I think about the impacts of this. When we generically talk about automation, again, it's those repetitive tasks. It's things that collecting task information, completion from end users that's out there. I mean, I always say the worst part of being a project manager is chasing people down for status updates.
100%.
It's awful. And so
Yes.
the more that you can automate that, push that out, drive accountability out to those individuals that own those tasks, the better. But that also means that speeds up, improves the reporting, the data entry, the scheduling. You're better able to do balance loading, load balancing. If I say it correctly, load balancing of your resources to know, how are people filling their time, and whether they have time for yet to be assigned to another project. This is one of those things, again, for a manager to go in and do, where you're constantly weighing, what do my people have? What do my projects have? What is that load? Can I take on more? How close are we to completing these tasks? If you don't have accurate, timely, automated pulling in of these data sources, you're not going to be able to make wise decisions around the usage of those resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea of the impact is that if we spend all of our time doing these granular, manual, administrative type task-based work, like you said, we don't have time, or we end up running out of time for things like strategy and value-added activities and going above and beyond. And while there are some people who are really excited about working 80 to 100-hour weeks, most people would really prefer to have regular hours and have that time be dedicated to the things that give the most value. And automation not only gives us some of that time back, but like you said, human error is a gigantic risk in most things. And when you do 1,500, 2,000, 3,000 tasks, like eventually you don't want to do it anymore. I don't care how much you enjoy doing the same thing over and over. Eventually your focus, your, accuracy, whatever, like will drop and you start having careless errors. So the efficiency and accuracy of this particular, whatever you're automating, I think becomes really visible really fast.
Yeah. So minimizing errors, increasing the consistency of the data, all great. Resource allocation, balancing all of that. The next one, speeding up project execution is huge as well. When I think back to, I know I've talked about it in past episodes, my first experience with SharePoint and Project Server. Which is, I'm almost to the point. In fact, I'm going to have an anniversary here in, I think, 2 months. I think it was, next month. Actually, it's March. Will be the 20-year anniversary of working hands-on with SharePoint.
Wow.
But that was that project server deployment back in 2005 for this very large client, and tried to convince them to do something else. Nope, they wanted to go with Microsoft Stack, and they wanted to go with Project Server. It was painful, but the idea was they didn't even care so much about the project tracking, a lot of the other automation. What they wanted to know was, we have X number of projects a month. Could we increase that by 10%? Could we deliver quicker on these projects? Because we had kind of repeating templates for types of projects. And could we deliver more quickly? Could we manage it, more projects with the same number of people, not just automatically scaling, hey, we need more PMs. And I ran the PM team. And so, I was me asking for those resources, but, that was a lot of what they wanted to be able to go and do, is that better, get more out of what we're using today, what we're doing today. And that was a lot of the push for the automation. And the answer was yes, we were able to do more. We got more efficient because of that. And it just, again, comes back to drive accountability to the people that are responsible for those things to provide more accurate and timely updates, and understanding that they were very busy out chasing people and engineers and talking to the clients and all those things, that they needed automation on their side as well. So it's not just a project management tool that everybody goes to and enters their time in. It's automation in a number of different areas. It goes back to, did you ever read the book, The Goal? So famous management book, operations management book called The Goal. It's written like a novel. So if you're not into reading, best practices books, management books, The Goal is different. So Eli Goldratt?
Oh, I think we've talked about this one before. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and so some great stories. So he's like the manager of a plant in the Midwest that creates physical hardware, machinery, things, whatever. And the company is shutting down different locations, and he's trying to save the plant. But at the same time, his marriage is rocky, and he's a Boy Scout leader, and he's out there. But he learns this lesson. He's walking through the swamp with a bunch of Boy Scouts, and he sees like the fast kids there, puts them out in front. They get way off into the leaders are back behind the slow kids. And so he uses that as an example. Well, how do I stage this? Do I put the slowest kids up front that keeps everybody slow? Do I meter it out? Like, what's the right way to motivate them to move everybody faster, most efficiently? And that's what we do as managers as well, is we're constantly looking at, how do I tweak the system so I improve that performance? And it's an ongoing thing, I guess is the point.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think, the more you know about things, the more you can do things, the more you can manage things, the more you can strategize about things, and the less you have to worry about the day-to-day monotony, the more you do it. And I mean, so what not to do, if we're going to add our what not to do,
never change.
Never change. Don't invest in automation. Don't invest in any of the stuff we talk about, because if you want to know what not to do, like, keep having all of your people doing all manual work all the time, and be afraid of technology. Like, just 100% fear it, because that's going to like definitely keep you in a hole.
Well, thinking about like areas where people can automate, I think it's important to talk about that because we sit here using the word automate. What do we actually mean by that? Where are those opportunities for automation in projects specifically? And it's really easy to again say, hey, where there's repetition, there's rule-based tasks. But I think of things like look for tasks that follow a structured process and have little need for that human intervention. Some of the things, areas to automate, like even if you have a manual process for individuals, for end users to go in and enter time, like a timesheet type tracking thing, to have to give those to a person and that person re-enters things over another system. That sounds ridiculous to us now, but that's how half my career, that's what we were doing.
All the
it
time.
was, in fact, that was a complaint of getting out of being a project manager because of all of like the double entry that it felt like I was doing. So if you can automate that, they enter in the system and it all rolls up to, hey, we have our department, the department rolls up into the entire company, anything that you can automate on that side. I mean, that's why I'm a big fan of a lot of, especially if you get into the operations, factory settings, the whole idea of IoT, the Internet of Things, devices to be able to track on performance of machines. The fact that now you have centralized management of plants, of locations, because these devices that are monitoring, is the heat going up, is the pressure getting high, is there, kind of all of those types of things, all opportunities to automate around
that. And you're exactly right. And hang on, I'm going to get my Six Sigma soapbox.
Yes.
To get on it. It's like, this is everything that Lean and Six Sigma is really about. It's identifying those opportunities for improvement, and automation is one type of improvement, obviously, and that's the type we're talking about today. But it really is looking for things. And my husband and I actually do a session on this, and we call it you can't automate. Let's see, was it automating problems or something like that? Like basically, the long and short of it is, you must have a process. And if it's a bad process and you automate it, all you're going to do is create more problems, because automating a bad process or a non-existing process does not fix it, right? What it does is it just causes more problems. And so at the absolute base of everything that you do in automation, you must have a defined, clear, good process established, understood, and written down so that you know how to automate that process. And so the things that you're looking for become very crystal clear when you start to use process tools to identify the process, so that then you can say, I can now, draw a little circle and hotspot around the things that are repetitive or easy that you could automate. And at the same time, you can also know, back to that QA comment of, did it do the thing that I think it was supposed to do? Did I get the outcome or the deliverable or the metric or whatever it is that I was trying to achieve?
Yep. Oh, I do want to point out kind of mid roll here. So we have now the project failure files, like the email list, that we're starting to build that out there. So if you would like to get updates on what did we talk about in the last episode, what's the next topic, what's coming up, please go and sign up for that. And very quick, I think it does a quick verification of your email. But we'd love to be able to share this information out if you're not able to follow us along, every week. But I'll talk about it again briefly at the end. But yeah, it's a thinking about this too. Like, we're talking about the data collection, that like those tasks, but there's other places for automation. And even structural automation doesn't necessarily mean a technology to come in and do. Like, when you think about like communication and collaboration, standardizing, automating, standardizing, where do we do these things? Like, if you want status updates, if you want the reports on what's going on, like, this is the location. So having that centralized, that one place, that single pane of glass, if you will.
I think about like laundry, right? I mean, to bring real world in, laundry is a thing that people can connect with a lot of times. And things like laundry chutes and laundry hampers are automation of a laundry process. right? Everything ends up in the same place. You don't have to go collect it from around the house. You're essentially bringing a process together to a common goal so that whoever's doing it doesn't have to do as much work, right? I try to relate this to real world stuff as much as possible, because sometimes we can kind of get up in this headspace where we're talking about things that are like, very like enterprise level. But at the end of the day, what we're talking about is how can you make your life easier for things you're already doing?
Yeah. Well, and so much of that is if you're able to standardize those things, like if you're centralizing your communication, if you're centralizing where we collaborate on these projects, people then know where to go and look for, where are the notifications that the project was halted or funding was approved or whatever that is. Where do I share my status updates that then gets pulled into the system and shuffled and rolled up to the leadership team? Where do I find reminders? Where do we go for like all those things? So all of that is a form of automation. It's why I love so much. Sorry, I'll soapbox a bit. We're both so Sharon and I are both Microsoft MVPs, and so we're in the collaboration stack. And I'm a big fan of platforms like Microsoft Teams because it becomes that centralized hub where you could do other automation and pull things in. And I'm not trying to pitch product here, but just having a solution like that where we know where to go, we know where to find it. One of my earliest clients in the SharePoint world, my company helped them to build out this massive intranet. They were a product company. They were, the nutraceuticals. They did like creams and lotions and makeup and all this kind of stuff, but they had hundreds of products. But part of what they standardized it on very early was that every new product, every new project, everything had the exact same structure. So if suddenly you got reassigned, you now own these 10 products in this area, your site structure was exactly the same. So people knew where to go for meetings. They knew where to go for notes. They knew where to get the product information. It was all structured in that same way. That is a form of automation. That's why I think people with OCD do so well as PMs, keeping things organized, because it is a way to take the chaos of the reality of what's happening with the project, and getting it into that organized, focused way so you have a plan of attack. It's a way that you can, if you are more automated, if you're more streamlined, you're better able to then identify potential risks and then take actions around those risks based on historical data and what you're seeing live. Because that's the thing about management. You're never going to have all the information that you need to make a decision. It's never going to happen. Rarely, never. I'll say never. I'm comfortable there. You'll never have all the information. And so you are making decisions based off the best of your ability based on the information you have today. So you want to have the most accurate, timely information, and then you're making your weighted guesstimates against that information, and then moving forward, learning from what you move forward on, collecting more information, and moving forward again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the really, important part of it is, what not to do is just kind of let all this stuff go all over the place. And then essentially everybody has to run down people and it's all duplicated. And what happens is you become very disjointed, very messy, very out of the loop, which makes you more and more inefficient, which causes more problems, which, at the end of the day is just not really where we're trying to head. It's not what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And I know that I apologize, folks, too. We're still, I am trying to follow along and with some of the comments that are coming in here. I know. So, thanks everybody for commenting out there. Simon, just show some of the comments here. So talking about, scripts for SharePoint search. Boy, I remember those painful days. But
I had a note thing in Outlook. In Outlook, you had the notes, and I literally had every single little, script that I needed there to grab.
Yeah. But there's always a lot going on with opportunities for operational improvement. So across the board, there's a lot of areas that we could get into depending on the technology, depending on the function, where you are in the organization, to talk about what that actually looks like. maybe moving to talking about how do you, I mean, what's your experience, Sharon, with making changes and automating without disrupting the status quo? And then how do you keep people, when you've automated, when you've changed things, from going back to the old way? I think that's the bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a big change management conversation. And luckily, early in my career, I was really blessed to have worked at a very large organization that had a dedicated change management team. And I think we've talked about this in the past. And I learned a lot about change management basics that I had never known. And one of the things is, first of all, take change management seriously, especially if you're doing something like implementing automation into an existing process. And the bigger and the more risk there is involved, the more you need change management involved. Because at the end of the day, what ends up having to happen is that it's kind of like redoing a highway, right? I mean, if people are driving on the highway every single day, you can't just shut the highway down for 5 years to work on it. You have to either do it in small sections and give them a way around in the meantime, or you have to come up with a way that they can continue to drive on it while you're doing it. And so I think it's the same thing.
I was just going to point out that, so I wasn't living here in Utah at the time, but when they did the Winter Olympics here, they did shut down the freeway for like 2 years.
It does happen. And that's, and what ends up happening is, I'm going to tell you right now, if you don't provide a suitable detour or a way for them to continue to use the process while you're automating it, they will go around and figure out their own stuff. They will make their own roads. They will define their own path. And sometimes that's okay, and sometimes it's not. So the idea around change management is understanding what your risk is, deciding whether you're going to continue letting them drive on the road while you automate it, whether you're going to shut it down and give them a detour for that part of the road, or whether you're going to be okay with the fact that you just have to shut it down and they're going to make their own way for a little while. But as long as you know that and plan for it and train around it and communicate, any of those ways can work successfully.
I like the idea too, when you go in and you pilot, when you pilot new technology, is that you're trying to prioritize, automating simple but time consuming tasks. You try that first, but you don't go in and test on projects that are worthless, that nobody cares about, and needs to be impactful part of the business that you're pilot on, so that you can see the actual results. But start with what where there needs to be the automation, and then you layer that on, pilot upon pilot upon pilot, as you learn from it and grow from that. So you might, part of the change management, part of getting it to stick over time is it needs to fit in. It can't, with the way that people work. You can retrain, but that's where a lot of the shadow IT efforts come from, is that something so new and so different from the way that they've always worked, that they know works. It might be slower, might be manual, but it works. And that's what they know. And something new that's more error prone, or they're unsure, so they make more human errors around those things, is less likely to stick. But when you introduce incremental changes and are retraining and going through and moving people across slowly and changing kind of those defaults, that those baseline settings, then people are more likely to stick with those changes, because it's not just an abrupt, rip off the bandage. The only time the rip off the bandage really works is when, and a lot of large organizations go through this, when solutions are being sunset. And so it's being turned off. It's no longer there. You have no other option.
Yeah, no. And I would say, I agree with you. The way to get people to not go back to the old way of things, and also the way to get people to use your new road that you're making, is make it valuable to them. If it's faster, easier, nicer, like if it solves problems for them, which is why it's so incredibly important when you work on these kinds of things, to gather requirements and do change management and talk to the people who are actually going to have to be, doing the stuff every day in the trenches, because those are the people who are going to experience the pain. And so what you really want to do is be like, not only are we going to change this, but this change is going to make your life better. And that, like, adoption goes through the roof when you actually do things that help people.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we started out, we said we were going to talk about the balancing automation with the human oversight. I mean, this is really comes down to it around change. There's no way you can just automate the change process. It's about monitoring, keeping things strategic, communicating, from the top level, the high level, like here's what the decisions we're making. These are the changes that we're making. Be as transparent and open as possible with that. Drive accountability of the changes to the people that own each of those different areas. I was actually thinking of this too, but of the book earlier.
Burn the bridges, burn the ships.
Yep. So that, just be very careful around that. But you need to avoid full dependence on automation. You need to regularly review, as you were saying at the start, reviewing and validating the outputs to make sure it is doing what you think that it's doing. And we've talked about it in the past about, the problem of making decision making through spreadsheets, where I've shared stories of managers that were looking at the spreadsheet, were looking at the top level, the key metrics, which didn't tell the whole story. It told a story for those metrics, but was not the full story. And people almost lost their jobs when they mistakenly, a manager, a director, was looking at the stats and not looking at what's actually happening on the ground that's changing those stats. Why somebody's performance looks so low? Well, it's because they had the hardest, messiest, ugliest problems that all of his peers couldn't do, and he took them on. So he had a fraction of the number of tickets of projects that were closed. You cannot do that. So you have to be careful. You have to understand that, data, it's a slice in time. It should inform you and be directional, but it's not going to give you all of the data that you need to make a decision.
Yeah, I would definitely say, in my opinion, automation is only as good as its latest audit. And automation will do a lot of things for you, but if you're automating the wrong things or bad processes, or things are going, are going unchecked, it can create all kinds of havoc in your business. So what not to do? Automate everything today, put it all on workflows, let it go for a few years, and then completely ignore it and never follow up on it. Like,
no.
It'll be fine.
Sharon, AI will do all of the validation. It will do all the automation and the validation.
It will. It will absolutely do it for you.
And we're upgrading to the new system of whatever the new system is, and which handles everything. And it has AI in it. So it fixes all that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No, think of the benefits here to wrap up too. The benefits of automation, especially in, specifically project management. So people can be, more productive. It means that they're not going and doing those time-intensive tasks, chasing people down for status updates. And so it's really, they could focus on the value-driven tasks instead of that administrative overhead activity. It also means that it can have higher accuracy and consistency, certainly the consistency in the formatting of those things, which allows you, let's say that when you're more automated, you get a better stakeholder engagement, only because you're not spending all your time on those tasks and can spend more time in conversations with the leadership to say, here's what's being delivered. Is this what you asked for? Is this what you want? This is what we're seeing. And having those conversations, they feel like they're getting more benefit out of it and out of your role managing that project. And you're going to identify and catch those risks a lot sooner.
Yeah, and we get a lot more time, like real time, to deal with exception handling, concerns, risks, issues, things like that, as opposed to spending the bulk of our time focusing on data entry or chasing down people. We can now spend more of our time dealing with exception handling and process issues and things like that.
Right. Well, to kind of conclude here, Sharon, I'm thinking, like, what are the key takeaways? This is a huge topic. We could probably do 2 or 3 more episodes on different aspects of automation. But this is all about operations, about, you're constantly looking at how can we improve, how can we make things more efficient, more accurate, and improve overall performance of the team, of the process, of the systems, of whatever that is. So the call to action, I would say, is wherever you are, wherever your level, the role, there are going to be opportunities for you to go in and look, where am I spending or wasting the most time? What can I do to automate in this area? So whether you have the ability to go and build that automation or do that yourself, or that you need somebody else in your organization to help. But those are conversations that you should bring to the forefront. Have a conversation with your team. Start looking for areas and make those, what's the measurement of that? How do we know we've been successful in this automation? So create a baseline for whatever it is that you're trying to improve, of how much time it takes, the effort, the time, the man hours for those things, whatever the measurement is, and then go in and pilot that automation and then review and talk about it. And what else you can do? You're going to learn a ton from attempting to automate.
In fact, in Six Sigma, this is what we train the yellow belts on, is really just to identify those opportunities, report them up to the team. So if you're already doing this and you're at all interested in the Lean Six Sigma stuff, yellow belts are just really the opportunity to watch for those things and bring them into the list. And going up to the higher belts is you taking initiative to say, I recognize an opportunity and I'd like to champion it getting, changed or updated or fixed or whatever, and implementing some of these automations. So if that's an area that you're interested in, this is a really good opportunity for you to look into that program.
Yep. Isn't that funny? You get people trained on it. I mean, who knows the systems, the processes, the content, all those things better than the people on the ground? So if you get them thinking about it, and this is that cultural change. We've not said the word culture till now, but that making a cultural change that where people think in terms of, and even make that part of people's job description in their role, to say, hey, you need to be spending 10% of your time thinking about automation and improving, optimizing.
Absolutely. It needs to be part of your culture. And I can tell you honestly that the places that I have worked where that was part of their culture, they were more efficient and they were, more profitable, and they were more modern and they were more cutting edge because they prioritized watching for these opportunities and correcting these opportunities and fixing these opportunities. And I think we're in another season of this with all of the AI stuff, where we're having these same conversations of watching for opportunities where tools and techniques can really make our lives better as far as efficiency and accuracy and things like that.
Yep. Well, that is it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us and subscribe as well. So you can find all the episodes. I mean, this episode will be on demand, within moments after this wraps up here. But you can find all the past episodes out on YouTube. I think, Sharon, you still have, you've got this over on your YouTube profile as well. Aren't you grabbing each of these that you're participating in?
Yep, there's a playlist on mine as well.
So you can find them all on mine, on Buckley Planet. And of course, you can go and sign up. Please do, as we start tracking this now, project failure files. Again, what we're sending out is just here's what the latest episode is. Here's the topic for the next episode. So we should be sending those out on a weekly basis. We're getting this thing started up, folks. So we're going to get things more automated. See what I did there, Sharon? We're going to automate more.
I did.
But it all starts with going and signing up. So it's just your email. We're not collecting a bunch of other information. And we're certainly not sharing that, selling that out anywhere. So this is, we're keeping it close here just for this series. So please do go and sign up for that. And we will be back next Monday and every Monday for the foreseeable future.
Till the end of time.
Until the end of time, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yes.
So we'll be back again at 9 a.m. Pacific with another episode of the series. And we hope that everybody can join us. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
I did notice there was a question over here about recommendations for Six Sigma courses, and ASQ.org is really the place to go to find out any information around Six Sigma. So absolutely check out ASQ.org, and they have providers and connections and information around certifications. So yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I think this is a great conversation. And if you guys have any questions or want to keep up with us, just reach out and definitely catch up with us on the Facebook group. And, we're excited to see you guys be successful in this.
All right. Thanks. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.